Hello, marketers, and welcome to the latest episode of the AdQuick Madvertising Podcast, a podcast that explores the intersection of marketing, technology, culture, all of these great things. Today, we have an awesome guest, someone I've known since my time in Silicon Valley. He has been on the brand side, the agency side. He's been now an entrepreneur and running some very cool companies. John Doherty, welcome to the cast. I don't think you need too much of an intro, but there you go.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm super excited to be here. Adam, we go way back, man. Used to go play with the dogs in Alamo Square Park there in San Francisco. So, I'm excited about this. It's great to reconnect.
Yes, that's true. And you were quite the professional mixologist. I remember you're like a pro at putting together really classy, sophisticated beverages, which I think comes with the territory of being a marketer and an ad man. Is you do these sort of mundane things like make a drink, but it's more stylish and it's more sophisticated. And we think we're classy even if we're not always that way.
That's right. We moved into a new house in March, and we actually have a whole wet bar here. So I'm like, this is awesome. So
yeah, the fun thing about when marketers make cocktails, they got to make them look make them look pretty, and you got to make the person want to drink it, right?
That's right.
Right. It's all about the presentation. We understand the importance of having a good foot to put forward. So John, there's a lot of things I want to talk about with you. A lot has changed in the marketing world over, the last few years, the last decade. It's always defined by change. One thing I wanted to start is you started your career, or at least part of it, you were on the brand side. And so I know you were in-house at some pretty cool companies. But now that you're an entrepreneur, I thought a cool question for you would be like, if you could go back and talk to your brand side self at maybe Zillow. John was at Zillow for a bit of time. What would you tell that person that, since you've been an entrepreneur, that don't have anxieties about these certain things that you may be worried about when you were in-house?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually started my career in marketing, agency side, and then went in house, and then went out on my own. But yeah, it's a good question. I haven't been asked that one before. I think what I would tell brand side John, well, I think I'd give myself one bit of advice around like actual marketing, and one bit of advice just around being a person. The advice around being a person is ask a lot of questions. And really try to understand. I think this works for marketing too, and really try to understand why someone is saying something before you say that they're stupid for saying that. I guess just to put it bluntly, I did too much like thinking I knew what was going on. I was a little too big for my britches. I was prideful, a lot of ego. And so and honestly, the last 8 years as an entrepreneur is really kind of rounded off a lot of those edges. I think becoming a dad has done that to me as well. But I would give like John professionally that advice. And so I mean, really boil it down, learn to like play nicely with others. And then as a marketer, I think the advice I would give brand side John back then is, focus on like double down on the channels that are working, because they work for a reason, and don't chase the shiny objects, because even though marketing is always changing, and that's part of what we love about it and part of what we hate about it. Sometimes it's more hate than love, on my side, to be completely honest with you. The channels work, and you have to invest in them, right? So like, don't dabble in a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of the other thing. Like, work on the things that work, right? Because ultimately, like, that's how you're going to succeed, is just by driving the numbers, not by being flashy and coming up with new ideas and all that sort of stuff. Marketing Twitter wants that. Real marketers and in-house marketers and in-house marketing leaders don't.
Shouldn't. Yeah, I love that. Finding a deep well and mining it instead of flirting from sort of thing to thing is something a lot of marketers miss. But with that, John, I followed, your career and also your sort of thoughts on the industry for a long time. And you're kind of one of the few people I know you would never call yourself this, but I would call you a unicorn from the perspective of you understand search, you understand social, you understand email, you understand ad creative. You see how all of these things work together. And I think that if I were a startup, I would want to find a John to at least like be on my marketing team, hopefully lead my marketing team. Do you think that's an unfair ask of me to try to find people who are, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, full stack marketers? Is it am I dreaming here to find more Johns, or is there another way of looking at this?
Man, it's a great question. I think it largely is a pipe dream. I see a lot of people wanting it and basically no one being able to find it. Basically, because anyone that has the experience that I do and being able to see across SEO and content and email and paid and social and copy and all of that, we have a lot of experience. We're very expensive to hire. And most like earlier stage companies don't know how to recruit someone like myself, and also often can't afford to pay. And like I'm much better off going and building my own, my own things. So I do think by and large it's a fool's errand to try to hire it. However, I do think you can find some good like senior-ish marketers that kind of that I wouldn't say no and can execute on. And like, I'm an okay copywriter. I'm not a phenomenal copywriter. I hire copywriters. But like I can set up the email stuff and all of that. I can run basic paid social and paid search and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I would say more try to find someone that probably has 4 to 6 years, well, actually, let me ask a question. When you say startup, how much up to what revenue are we talking about?
I mean, I would say anywhere from pre-revenue to maybe 10 million.
Pre-revenue with funding?
Yeah.
All the way up to 10 million. Yep. So yeah, I would find someone with 4 to 6 years of experience, has a little bit of management experience, managing a couple people at their last gig, that is deep on an area that you have identified that you think that can be very successful for your business, that you're willing to basically invest in, give them the budget and everything they need in order to succeed, but that also appreciates the other things, right? When I got hired at HotPads, which was Zillow's number 2 brand at the time, I was an SEO expert. I'd gone deep on SEO for years, and SEO is how they grew Zillow. And so I was brought in to fix their SEO problems, their traffic problems. And then I built out the team, and kind of like got each of the channels kind of going, and then hired people and, delegated to those people. And eventually by the end of my time there, I'd also hired myself out of SEO. So I was just managing, the team. So I appreciated all of the different channels. I appreciated how they could add to the business, but also I was the first marketer there in 2.5 years, I think, something like that. They hadn't had a marketer since they had been acquired by Zillow at that point. This is 2013, so long, 10 years ago. But I appreciated all the channels. So if you're trying to hire someone, your first marketer especially, hire someone that gets not just the tactics, and you don't want someone necessarily saying like, oh yeah, I went and used, this tool and bought some leads and then used Fiverr to do blah, blah, blah. You don't want that person. You really don't. They're like one trick ponies and they're just throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall. You want someone that actually gets like the broader strategy, that can actually look at a market and be like, this is going to work. This is going to be too expensive, that kind of thing, but appreciates all of the different channels, even if they go deep on one. So I'm not really saying a T-shaped marketer, but I'm kind of saying a T-shaped marketer is who I'd hire with a little bit of management experience and is a good person, a good culture fit.
And for our audience, if you're not familiar with the term T-shaped marketer, I believe that came out of Traction, how any startup can achieve explosive growth. It was a book written by Gabriel Weinberg, who's the founder of DuckDuckGo, and Justin Morris, who's now the CEO or founder of Kettle and Fire, which is a consumer product. Yeah. But cool. T-shaped marketer basically implies has a broad understanding of the various channels that we have at our disposal and goes deep on 2 to 3 of them.
Yep. And I would say for this role, I would say broad understanding, or broad, like a little bit of experience in all of them, but an equal appreciation for all of them in the right context.
I think one of the challenges, marketers as like marketer number 1 or at, smaller stage startups is prioritization, right? So, I think a lot of folks went through a lot of these boot camps and they're like, okay, I got to learn all these channels. I would argue that that's not necessary, but I would love to get a sense of how you think about prioritizing which channels to take on first vis-a-vis a business model.
Yeah. So the way I think about that is a couple fold. One is what plays to your strengths. So if you have deep advertising experience, then, advertising is probably the channel that you should, that you should use to go after. I'm fully convinced that any channel can work if you give it enough time, budget, and focus, and you put the right people on it. Like, I'm firmly convinced of that. And so really it matters what budget do you have, what experience do you have, can you give it the focus, and do you have long enough time to see it succeed? And also, or can it be successful in the time kind of margin that you have? So that's kind of how I think about it. I mean, and then I also think about it on another plane, which is, speed to results. So, advertising is quicker than content and SEO. SEO and content take freaking forever. If you're an early stage business, I actually don't recommend most businesses start off with that. Like, start that flywheel going, get some content out there, that sort of stuff. But like, especially if you haven't found product market fit, it's going to be a lot of, it's too long of a feedback cycle versus ads. Then that can be a quicker feedback cycle, but you also have to have the budget up front, right? So you need to kind of know the pros and cons of each of these channels. You also need to have it for content and SEO, by the way. But you need to have like the direct budget to spend like now on ads, right? Instead of people, which is a mental hurdle for a lot of people to get over. But so there's that. And then the other one is, and this is kind of what I was getting at with, bring someone in that can kind of size up the opportunity. When I looked at, when Zillow was recruiting me and I looked at their traffic at Hotpad's traffic, I was like, yeah, there's a big opportunity here with SEO. And they were like, and you're going to have $25,000 a month in marketing budget. And it's just going to be you on the team at this point. And that 25K is going to be outside of people we want you to hire. And I was like, I can do a lot of damage with 25K a month, for SEO and content. So that's what we did. And it made sense, but you also have to kind of look at the competitors and what are they doing? What's it going to take to rank? Or what's it going to take to, be number one, number two on Google? What does your CAC need to be, like that sort of stuff? And this is all stuff that, like, past marketers, the madmen, marketers, et cetera, like, it was all about getting eyeballs. And then like, how it worked with the business was just like someone else's problem, not so much in the digital world. As a marketer, you also need to be able to size up the opportunity. You need to be able to look at the, acquisition costs, and in software, like acquisition payback and all of that. In B2B and like high ticket sales, you need to look at like how well is each channel converting to leads and qualified leads. Adam, I know you have some rants about MQLs and SQLs, but let's just call them qualified leads. They're qualified like to become a customer. Let's just call them that. And then ultimately like sales, and obviously like marketer can't affect sales by selling better, right? But so, which is why it's a team effort. But the marketer should also have an understanding of all of that, and work to track all of that back, because that then feeds back into the campaigns, channels, et cetera, that they're running.
I love it. And I want to switch gears a little bit, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people on this call are we talked a little bit about how to hire for a first marketer from a startup founder. And I think everything you said is super good, actionable advice for them. But in terms of large brands, one thing that I'd love to get your take on, because you're not part of corporate America anymore. You're, running your own shows, you're doing startups, so you can give a nice unbiased opinion. But one
I
thing that I
escaped.
would have hoped to see, one thing I had hoped to see at this point was the CMO title be more sophisticated with just internet things overall, with not just channels, but processes, hiring, all of this stuff. And Chris just wrote a great op-ed on basically CMO tech readiness. And it appears to me a lot hasn't changed in the last 10 years. You see like a 2-year revolving door cycle of CMO. You see a lot of these guys not wanting to track to revenue. They would rather win an award and, be at a festival in France as opposed to, being held accountable to revenue, right? And so I feel like the office of the CMO feels stuck. I don't know if you get similar vibes, but I'm curious your take as someone who has seen things from the inside and now has a healthier distance from this than probably a lot of people listening.
Well, let me start off with, I too would rather be at a festival in France than sitting in my office reviewing copy. But Chris agrees. But that aside, I agree and disagree with you. I think on the one hand, it is beneficial when a CMO understands digital. So when I was at Zillow, I reported to Zillow's chief marketing officer. Her name's Amy Batinsky, phenomenal manager, marketer, person, all of that. And Our CEO, Spencer, really understood digital. And I mean, he was co-founder of Hotwire. So like they really got digital, and that really helped Zillow dominate digitally. Like SEO, like they called a whole company, they called it a play, like focus to beat Trulia at SEO. And that is why Zillow acquired Trulia instead of the other way around. So it's very, very helpful. On the other hand, and so I think in a small business where you don't, I mean, not Zillow side, like Zillow had been public for a year or two when I joined them. So like they're big, right? I was like number 600 and we grew to 2,400 by the time I left 2 years later. So big company, big-ish, not Google, et cetera size, but big-ish. But if they're like, if they're smaller, especially if it's like a 4-person marketing team, something like that, especially if it's a software business or something like that, they really need to understand digital. And I'm seeing more do, actually. It's when you get to the bigger companies that, then they're adding in layers of leadership and that sort of stuff. I actually think it's less important at a bigger company like a Google or someone like that, or even just like a 300, 400 person company, because what the CMO really needs to have is the ability to hire, get trained, and retain great people. And also drive metrics. So I very much agree with you on the metric side that more CMOs need to be like focused, like they need to be focused on numbers. And honestly, if they're not, they shouldn't have a job. Like it's harsh to say, but like they shouldn't. They should be the one that knows the numbers better than anybody else. The CFO or the head data person or whoever it is that's like collecting these numbers, they should be the CMO's best friend. Like as a CEO, and my companies are small, right? Like, Editor Ninja, there's me and nine editors, all part-time, and a couple of them are on the bench right now as I'm like, still spinning up like customers. I always like to have extra like editing capacity there. I track my numbers weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And I have targets that I'm looking to hit every single week. Every Monday morning, I don't do any meetings before noon. And one of the tasks I do every single Monday is I go in and I fill out my scorecard for the businesses every single Monday, right? I'm the CEO. I'm also the CMO. I'm the chief everything officer, right? But I track those numbers every single day. And if you don't know your numbers, how the heck are you making good decisions? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. So if CMOs do not know their numbers, and Amy really knew Zillow's numbers, the whole C-suite there did, they were incredible. I learned a ton from them. But if a CEO, CMO, et cetera, doesn't know their numbers, what the hell are you doing running a business? It just doesn't, you can't make good decisions. And good businesses, building a business is based off of making more good decisions and fewer bad decisions. And data, especially digitally, helps us make better decisions.
Yeah, your experience at Zillow is definitely biased to a tech savvy firm. I mean, they would have to be, right? So there's definitely still, at least we see, and a lot of the people that I talk to get frustrated by having, CMOs that are still fully operating on gut feel, or they're afraid to allocate to like high ROI channels, but have no problem putting millions to Animal Planet ads at 2 p.m. that no one sees because they've always,
Sure.
Allocated to cable, which is why, that industry just gets completely over allocated to. And
Right.
it's just an interesting time because I would have thought there would be more demand for performance driven CMOs, where the CEO and CFO would be seeing marketing as this, revenue focused channel, and, a practice that was very measurable. And it still isn't. We're trying to push that on the out of home ad side because we want to put metrics around, billboards and other forms of out of home. And we see really good ways to do it and have attribution. And a lot of times, not just ourselves, but even search marketers and social media marketers are told, oh, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a room with a client where they're like, we don't know that which of our marketing is working. I'm like, do you not have an analytics tool? Like it just like blows my mind that these things still happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, I'm sneezing and coughing over here.
You're all good.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen that, for sure. I think in more like traditional businesses, I don't know. I don't have the experience there, but I do think there needs to be someone, if you're doing business online, there needs to be someone, not necessarily the CMO, but there needs to be someone who is looking at those numbers, and feeding those to the person that is, helping make decisions. I know if I was a marketer working for a non-data driven CMO, it just wouldn't work out. because I'm a very data-driven marketer. But there are also a lot of marketers out there that aren't very data-driven and aren't, and aren't great at their job, but they somehow still have jobs. And I don't know, maybe they're working for these CMOs that don't know what they're talking about or aren't measuring and just throwing money. I mean, I wish I had money to throw after, Discovery Channel ads at 2 p.m. Right. I don't know. Maybe these companies just have more money than God. It's just like, it just is what it is, but like, if I was the founder of that, I'd be like, why the hell are we spending all this money on like these ads? Are they doing anything? Like, that's literally coming out of my pocket, right? Coming off the bottom line. So,
I mean, I would argue that so much has changed in like the last probably like 10, 15 years on the marketing front. I mean, we're old enough. I mean, we're old timers. So like, I still remember being a very junior marketing employee at Stand Up, and, VP of marketing is reporting to the CMO. Here's how many blog post views we got. Here's how many social shares we got. Here's how much web traffic has increased over time. And, I think the plumbing wasn't there to tie the activity to money, to revenue.
yeah.
And so I think it's been a slow evolution. And I think eventually the changing of the guard and the availability of said tools to connect the two will kind of make this an ancient problem,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And it's still like, that's still nascent. And I still see all the time companies that don't have that connection, or, they kind of lose the visibility at sales and marketing don't really talk, or there isn't really a sales function. And, but a lot of there's some crazy stat about like, I don't even remember it. And so this is totally going to be a made up stat, but it's like over 50% of leads never get followed up with, or it takes companies that over a week to follow up with them or something like that.
Yeah.
Like over half. That is so much wasted budget, like marketing budget to get those in the door, right? Assuming they're qualified. It's just wild to me that like so many companies just don't follow up with like what they're already getting, and kind of like maximizing those channels. So, I often look at like when I come in and I'm working with a company, working with the founder, working with the marketing team or something like that. And I do some like marketing and also like agency founder coaching at this point. I'm just like, show me your numbers. Like that is what I want to see. And sometimes I've even been like, because I've done this before. I've reported on like these tiny numbers where, and I'm like, why are you reporting on this? Like, you're not doing anything, like your number of Twitter followers has been 516 for the last like 8 weeks. Like, why are we talking about this? You're just making yourself look bad. You're not doing anything here. So why are we even talking about that? Right. Like, let's talk about sign. Let's talk about traffic. Let's talk about, all the main metrics, make it like 3 to 5, but like, I don't need to know all those numbers, as the exec. And I don't know, there's too little focus these days in marketing. Like, I'm heavily convinced of this. Like, people are just all over the place. They have all these friggin' numbers. Like, we're drowning in data. And we're like light on insight.
And just because it can be measured doesn't mean that it should, right?
Right. Exactly. And sometimes you measure too much and it paralyzes you and you're like, I could go this direction. I could go that direction. I could do the other thing. It's like, my God, can we just like say these are the things that matter and those are the only numbers that matter? Like I was talking to someone, a buddy in my mastermind yesterday, and he was talking about like, he's trying to get this new like offering off the ground, but he's also going and doing all these other things. I'm like, dude, you just need to be focused on sales. You need to be focused on people telling you no or telling you yes, and if they tell you no, ask them why not. Like that is what you need to know right now. Don't do anything else. Don't go like launching new offers and like that sort of stuff. Commit to this offer and try to sell it to the next 5 people. I told a coaching client that this morning as well. I'm like, let's adjust it this way, but I want you to do this for the next 5. Don't like waffle between these two because you're not getting the data that you need. Pitch them this for the next 5. See what you get. We'll learn. We'll keep going. There's just so much like, and that's, I know that's sales focused, but like same thing happens in marketing. People are like sprinkling a little bit of budget here and a little bit of budget there and a little bit of budget the other place. Like I get, don't go spend $100,000 on a billboard if you've never done billboards before, but like, don't just spend $100, right? Because you're not going to get enough data. I'm going to go on a rant here, but my biggest problem with digital marketing and digital advertising is these gurus that tell people start with $10 a day advertising and then never tell them to increase it. It's ridiculous. It's like, all right, yes, I get it. Just start. $10 a day is easy to start with. fine, whatever. Hit go on your freaking Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. But if the math just doesn't make sense though. It's going to take forever to actually learn anything. Like if you sell a $500 a month product, right? Editor Ninja's main offering is $499 a month. I'm willing to pay up to 2 months of that, so $1,000 to get a customer, to get a customer, right? I know I can close 1 out of 3 people that I speak with, right? So I need to get leads for $333, right? If I'm spending $10 a day, and this includes weekends, which are usually less effective, it's going to take me 3 months before I get a closed client, right? Closed customer. Versus if I'm willing to spend $1,000 a month, guess what? I'm probably going to get one in that first month. It's going to pay itself back, and I'm going to keep on going. It's about the speed of this stuff. Like too many people were just spreading our budget super, super thin. Everyone's saying they need to do more with less. No, you need to go deeper with what you have. Quit like testing all these little, marketing channels. Like focus on 1 or 2 and get those working, and then work on other channels. Quit testing.
So I probably should have introed this at the beginning, but I know our audience will be super interested in Editor Ninja. Do you want to share the overview of what it is? Because I always think like Editor Ninja is one of the cooler names for a startup. So
Thanks.
tell us about it.
Yeah, I was like weirdly surprised that the domain was available a few years ago. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How does nobody have this .com? It's crazy. So Editor Ninja is a unlimited content editing service. So what that means is unlimited. You sign up, it's a flat rate. You sign up, you add content into your queue. You have an editor who edits it and sends it back to you. If you need to get more content per day edited, you can pay us more dollars per month in order to get that done. It's based on the Design Pickle unlimited graphic design model. We just applied it to content editing. So it starts at $500 a month and goes up from there. $500 a month gets you 1,000 words a day edited, a blog post a day, up to 1,000 words a day edited. So the average blog post takes, a couple days to get back. And yeah, so powered by real human editors. We have 6 active, 3-4 more on the bench. Most of them are dual masters, MLit, and masters of fine arts, professional editors. I've hired half of them out of coffee shop jobs, but they're professional editors. They were just slinging espresso in order to make ends meet. And I love espresso as much as the next person. My wife bought me an espresso maker for my birthday a month ago, but like, these are professional editors. I was like, come work for me. You can do it remotely. You can set your own hours. I just need this amount like per month, or, this amount of availability per week. So we're content editing. We're not writing. We're editing content that people are already producing, primarily focused on B2B marketing content. So blog posts and white papers and ebooks and that sort of stuff. And we primarily work with 2 types of customers. The main one is content agencies. So companies producing content at scale, really 30, 40 pieces a month is kind of our sweet spot, because they're producing enough that it's taking enough time that by hiring us, they reduce their editing costs significantly. We get it back. We get content back on average twice as fast as they can do it editing on their own. And they stick with us because they're invested in content and in producing content. And then in-house marketing teams are the other ones. So either ones that are producing it at scale, so decent size-ish companies, or ones that are smaller. We do have like a developmental, so like more in-depth like editing option. We're not subject matter experts though, so that one's harder to make work. But if they have an SME internally that's reviewing it before it comes to us to work with structure and style guides and all that sort of stuff, like we're awesome for that. So basically, long story short, I launched the subscription service in January of 2022. We are now doing low 5 figures a month in revenue, and we're editing about 500,000 words a month.
Wow. And so you've started a copy editing service in the middle of an AI craze, and you guys don't use AI.
We don't. All humans.
All humans. But I'm sure a lot of the copy you get is probably created by AI. And are they like asking you to make it better? Because obviously the AI copy is only so good, right?
Yeah. So, it's a great question. Yeah. And it's like, it's a wild time to be in this business just with AI. And for the first while, I was just like, what the hell do we do with AI content? Like personally, I'm like you, Adam, I'm allergic to hype and bullshit. And like, anytime I see something hyped, I'm like, nope, I want nothing to do with this. But I saw, ChatGPT launch and was like, all right, got to get access. So I got access as quick as I could, ran 4 prompts, got goosebumps and was like, this changes the game, but what the hell does it mean for us? So the first half of this year was really interesting. I had quite a few people coming to me asking about editing it, but basically wanting two things. One, us to basically rewrite it, which is not what an editor does. Um, and secondarily, they wanted to get content basically for free. So I moved our AI editing option into our custom plans, which start at $2,500 a month. So I stopped getting those people that want content for free. And now basically I've learned how to like ask questions around it and all that. So we work with, I would say 30% of the content that comes through us has had AI touching it in the creation process. We still see a lot of like just human written stuff, but all like the low level like writers, that's basically been replaced by AI as far as I can tell. But what I also look for is if they have someone internally, like is AI being prompted by a subject matter expert writer who is also working with that content before it even comes to us. We can fact check it and that sort of stuff, but it also kind of increases like the feedback time and and all of that. So like we do a fair bit of that, but really like when it comes to AI content, and we've seen less of the like, I've had people be like, can I give you 200 prompts and you create 200 blog posts for me? And I'm like, that's not what we do. Go talk to Content at Scale, who are great, like AI, like content production agency out there. They're like one of the few doing it well. But like if it's been looked at by a human, and it's factually correct, it's been, it's in a shitty first draft for state, let me put it that way. If it's there, we can do something with it. But if it's just like been spat out and it still says I'm a language learning model, therefore blah blah blah, no, I'm sorry, that's not ready. We've actually sent content like that back. We've been like, this isn't ready for editing. So
Well, AI is obviously bringing a lot of changes to this space. I'll want to do the same thing over again, which is we're old timers. And I don't know, back in the day, Rand Fishkin, founder of Moz, kind of, had this thesis of you need to ship 10x content, right? And the format was, it could be a blog post, could be an ebook, could be, a landing page that, converts really well. It has lots of social proof.
Something substantially better than what's already in your space, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm thinking about how, leads interact with our website, but like, from your experience, do you see that like people are still investing in these types of, assets? Are they creating these 10x pieces of content? Are people actively still doing like ebooks? Like, what are you seeing out there in the world?
I'm not really seeing ebooks.
Right.
I'm not really seeing white papers. And part of like just the way my business is set up and kind of who we've like messaged towards, we're going for people doing a fairly high volume, right? So we see a lot of, I hate the term, but I've been using it because people use it, SEO content meant to rank in search, and it's pretty good. And our goal, of course, is to make it better, to make it like, read better, all those things, so it can convert, free of typos, correct grammar, like all that stuff. Because a lot of people writing that content still are not great writers. So, as Brian Clark from Copy Blogger told me, he said the magic is in the editing. And I fully believe that. But yeah, I'm not seeing these like bigger pieces, white papers, that sort of stuff. Maybe in like more traditional, industries, maybe they are still going on, but I'm not really seeing it. And the reality is, Chris, like I've always kind of preached kind of content quality, and like I like to write stuff that people want to read, but quality is like, how do you define quality? Everyone's definition is different. Good content, better content than what's already in your space, stuff people want to read. But too many people get hung up on perfect or on quality content, and they don't actually create anything. I would rather have 10, 80% there, like 80% quality, right? If there's a scale of 0 to 100, where 100 is like a perfect blog post, I'd rather have 10, 80% there than 100% there. It goes back to that. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the story of the photography class, where at the beginning of the semester, the professor said, all right, your grade is based off of one photograph, your best photograph this semester. And he split the class in half, and one half was sent into the field to take photos. The other half learned all the theory and how cameras work and lighting and dark rooms and blah, blah, blah. Guess who got the better grades? The ones that went into the field and took photos. Their photos were remarkably better. They weren't as technically good, right, in the dark room or whatever. They just had more reps, you know? So for a lot of companies, a lot of people, you just need to create more. You know, I've written millions of words on the internet. I still don't consider myself an incredible writer, but I can get stuff out there that people want to read that drives business, you know? And I'm I seem like a better writer now because I have editors that edit all my stuff. Which is the whole reason why I launched the business in the first place, was to put out better content. But just more reps, man, more reps. Too many people aren't doing enough.
Let's go back to, you said something that intrigued me, which was, the magic is in the editing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, from the perspective of your business, like, how do you quantify that for like your clients? Do you have like a process that you kind of stick to kind of prove the incrementality of, your work, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I wish we could prove it easier. The reality is, with new content, it's kind of hard to say like, it's better, right? Or it's performing better, it's driving better leads or whatever, because you don't have a baseline to work from. We can do that when we're like refreshing content, editing old content, etc. Which I wish we had more of that work, honestly, because it's fun and it like shows real like results. Because there are companies that have also produced too much content and they need to go back and refresh the stuff that they produced in the past. But so I'm really glad you asked that question, because back last year, October-ish, I had in the span of a couple of weeks, I had a few customers be like, I don't actually see any edits that you've made. And I looked and I'm like, we've definitely edited it. Like, they get back the original copy. We can also edit in the original like version people give us. That's a switch that we rolled out earlier this year. We give them the version with all of the edits, and a clean version with all the edits accepted, and any like editor comments remaining, right? Usually 2 to 3 per 1,000 words is kind of what we see there. But I got this multiple times and I'm like, people aren't looking at like the version with all the edits. So they're not actually like quantifying it and appreciating it. So you want to know what I did? I literally put a piece of, when we have a double QA process. So every document is looked at by 2 professional editors, the editor doing all the work, and their managing editor, Michael, who is also a professional editor. He looks at the piece as well, and catches anything the first editor didn't. But what Michael does now is, when he accepts all of the primary editor's edits, he looks at, in Google Docs, he looks at the number of edits that were accepted, because Google Docs tells you that. And he takes that and he puts that number into the entry in our software that we use to kind of, bring in documents and return it to customers. He puts that number in. And so now in every single email, like I just got one today, I just had one of my pieces sent back. Your editor, Michael Blackwood, made 13 edits to this document. And this was like developmental editing. I know he did more than that, with like kind of moving stuff around and making comments and such. That's just edits. He made like, I was just looking at literally before we hopped on. It's like 1,000-word piece, and there's like 14 comments as well. So we just started telling people, here's how many edits we made. Here's all the comments we made. And that right there, like, I haven't gotten that feedback since. So, for a lot of our customers, it's just like, they just want to see that we're doing things that they trust, that, they trust us to be professional editors, and we're making their content better. And for them, quantifying it via number of edits is how they seem to do it. So that's what we'll go with.
So that's awesome. And like, you've built this, incredible business, around this certain pain point that, agencies have around, getting all these, like large scale content, basically edited.
Yeah.
Opportunities for improvement that you think agencies can kind of start thinking about in terms of improving in-house.
So there's one big one that I've identified. And I actually call it content marketing editing. So I come from like a more like traditional publishing background. I actually helped run a book publishing company from Switzerland back in 2008, 9, 10, kind of spread over those times. And I'm more used to like the journalistic, like managing editor that assigns stories, and the writers research and write, and then the managing editor gives feedback and they do another draft, and then, in a couple rounds, and then it ultimately goes to publication. What I see a lot of content marketers, especially in-house, do is they come up with the idea internally. They hire a cheap freelancer to write a really bad first draft. And then the content manager internally, or whoever is doing content there, takes it and rewrites it, essentially. Not training their writer to get better. They're accepting subpar work and then basically ripping it apart and basically writing it themselves. I'm like, what are you doing? And this is largely why, like, and I know, Chris, you're making that face, but like, I make that same face all the time. I'm like, what are you doing? This is wild to me. We get people coming in that they're like, hey, we're looking for a developmental editor. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're looking for a content rewriter is basically what you're looking for. I don't say that to them, but like, I want to. And I see like, they're like, this is our draft that we're taking. This is what we published. And the writer didn't touch it again. And I'm like, these are completely different pieces. Like, what are you doing? So I think a lot of in-house teams they'd be more effective at that point if they just replace those writers with freaking AI and then like use that for like, bullet points and that sort of stuff. And then just went and wrote it themselves, honestly. Or they should adopt a more kind of traditional publishing process where like you're working with the writer to help them get better, to get better stuff. And then working with an editor to kind of, clean it up. And also that person internally acting as like the subject matter expert there, because they actually know the content. And then then you can work with like outsourced like editing services like ours to kind of handle the final like clarification and, outside perspective and copy editing, keeping it with style guides, fixing tone, fixing formatting, proofreading, all that stuff. But man, there are just so many inefficiencies at these companies. And I think it's because they blow so many companies blow basically their whole content marketing budget on a salary for an in-house content person who then like might not be a great writer. And so they're using cheap freelancers and all they can afford is cheap freelancers, but it's like enough that it's like helping them produce okay content. Like, I don't know. I have a lot of rants around this. I think a lot of them would be better off like hiring kind of a part-time like content person. And if they have say $5,000 a month for content marketing, hire a content manager, a part-time content manager for a couple grand a month. And then put the rest of the money towards like actual good writing.
So, John, in terms of companies that do a good job with, either maintaining a corporate blog where they're consistent or, sharing updated tips or whatever written content,
Yeah.
what should those teams be doing with that content beyond just publishing it on their site?
What you mean hitting publish isn't the best marketing? I
No,
mean,
I meant like,
I gotcha. What should they be doing? A lot of things. Number one, they need to be clear on what the purpose of the content is. There are a lot of like, if you're just producing a ton of like glossary content, that sort of stuff, like for SEO purposes, which is still an effective content marketing play, by the way. No reason to like repurpose that and, put it into newsletters and like that sort of stuff. But if you have obviously sharing it out on your socials, if you can, pinging it to, to people who, influencers in the space, trying to get it included in like, agency publications, that sort of stuff. Like I've been amazed actually by how many like industry publications there are out there. And I think too many people have been kind of scared off from like repurposing, even like, especially like whole pieces, because they're afraid of like duplicate content. It's ridiculous that like canonicals have kept people from distributing their content on the internet. It's wild to me. But there are also a lot of like paper like publications where like stuff can get republished, right? It builds you as a thought leader, like that sort of thing. So I think like that sort of thing can be super high leverage. I don't know. I do enjoy I've seen people playing around with like, every piece of content put $50 behind it to boost a Facebook post, like, or, an Instagram ad or, something like that. It can work. I feel like a lot of people though, they're just kind of doing it because it's what they've always done. It's because it's what they were told to do. And they're not actually measuring the results. So they're just wasting a bunch of money that they could put towards like better content. So I'm a big fan of actually marketing your content, right? There's the content part and there's the marketing part, but it's not like necessarily this like 8-step repurposing every single piece in the same way sort of thing. It's I like to think, what are the 2 to 3 things that we could do here that are going to get us the highest leverage?
Yeah, I think what you said is right. Figure out what works for your brand, to make sure that what you're investing money in, like content's an investment. So,
Mhm.
what are you going to do to get the most out of your investment? And that's obviously
Right.
going to vary by company type, by budget, by all these things. Like, it's nice to get
Right.
search traffic, but could you get more value by turning a blog post into a YouTube video?
Mhm.
Like you said, sharing it for guest contributions. I actually I as long as you have the canonical at the top saying this was originally published somewhere,
Sure.
Googlebot's not going to like release like the gates of hell down on your site and kill all your traffic. Like, it's
That's right. That's
everyone's
right.
too paranoid about things like that, I think, too.
Totally. Totally. I 100% agree, man. Yeah, or like repurposing your best stuff into a lead magnet, right? And which goes back to the like, how are you actually measuring the effectiveness of your content? What is the ultimate goal of it? And I can tell you, it shouldn't just be traffic, right? Traffic is great, right? But you have to turn traffic into leads and sales, or maybe it's signups, or whatever it is, kind of depending on your business. But you have to be tracking that. You have to say like, why are we even doing this? And the companies I see not putting the right enough budget towards this channel, it's because they don't know what they're getting, because they're not actually measuring it.
Yeah, and I would say the first class problem of having a bunch of traffic that doesn't convert is a much better place to be than to have no traffic and no conversions. Like, you'd rather have a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
getting attention and figure out how to A/B test some different calls to action on those pages. So, like,
yeah,
I would never worry about having too much traffic. We're talking about,
no,
I got into a discussion with someone the other day that was really interesting, and he made it a point to say, he's like, so like, I was talking about like impressions and like top of funnel metrics, and he's like, you know what? You shouldn't denigrate those, because if you have them, you're in a good spot. So like you might say
yeah.
this because you know how to get those, but like for other marketers, you shouldn't get them to think that these aren't important, because they are important. Like, you have nothing else without them.
And there are too many people out there basically saying like, who cares about quantity? Just focus on quality. Like, I mean, I showed you with the photographer example story, right? Like, you get to quality by doing more quantity. And honestly, I'm starting to believe, and I actually changed my mind on this in the last 6 months, Adam. I used to be that like, focus on quality, not on quantity. And like, we've been cranking out a decent bit of content, like targeting high volume like keywords at Editor Ninja. And like, we've got traffic and it's converting, right? Like, yeah, does it convert like a direct like visit from Google for copy editing services to our copy editing services page? No, but you get enough of the traffic and some of it's going to convert. Um, so yeah, I don't know, man. This is what I'm saying. People need to do more usually.
Or if not right now, you could always throw them into a nurture, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they're not ready to book a call because they just came in searching for like the difference between, or like, what is an antecedent, like, good for people to know. And guess what? People that are trying to learn what an antecedent is, they're probably writing or they're editing. So they're probably our audience, right? But they're probably not ready for us yet. But what can I offer to them that gets them to give us their email? And then now they're in our nurture campaigns, right? Or at least hearing about new content that we're putting out that I email out. So it's kind of the long play, in that case. But yeah, definitely don't denigrate like impressions and reach and all that sort of stuff. Don't just focus on impressions and reach, but don't denigrate it.
Yeah, I think a problem is that you get the more sophisticated marketers sometimes forget that not everyone is like them, and they don't realize, there's a reason Hollywood makes, all these sequels that we think are bad. Yeah, we're like kind of too, sometimes we can get too close to things, and maybe there's people at different stages of sophistication, maybe with your software or your industry.
Mm,
And so if you just focus on them, like, you're going to miss all the people who just aren't ready for that certain level of, sophistication. That's just one
yeah.
example. Like, that could
Yeah.
manifest as many different things, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Honestly, like, I wish more marketers would actually take not necessarily marketing classes, but business classes. Just like, understand how to read a P&L. Understand like, take some psychology classes too, and just like understand people and understand why people buy, and and in different, like, getting someone to sign up for a $29 a month premium SaaS is very different from getting someone to contact you for $100,000 like design project. But you can learn to understand that psychology. So I think there's a very real like play there. And yeah, too many like marketers, they get like one channel focused or one market focused or something like that. And they can't, they just start looking at saplings and, and they're missing the whole entire beautiful forest for this like tiny little tree that's growing. Like, why are we focusing on that metric, man? Look at this giant forest.
Yeah, I remember earlier in my career, one of the things that was super helpful was like the jobs to be done framework, which is, you're not selling, you shouldn't be feature dumping, you shouldn't be talking about your product. You should just talk about how you solve that one job that they're trying to do, right? And I think Intercom was really exceptional at this. And who else? Coffee Meets Kale was the book. And you know what job that solves, but we won't get into that here.
Yeah. But like, have you read the book Forget the Funnel or heard of the book Forget the Funnel? It's by Claire Swellentrop and Gia Laudy from the company Forget the Funnel. Basically, they call it customer-led growth. It's jobs to be done for the digital world. And it's phenomenal. It's the same thing. It's like, what are they trying to do? How can we help them get that thing done? Or how can we show them that we can help them get that thing done and show them how we do it, right? How we get it done for them. It's super powerful, and so too many people don't do it, especially early stage marketers. But like, I'm also convinced that like decent sized businesses, a couple million a year, especially more like traditional industries, like if they learn to do that, man, they could blow up. They could take over their industry.
So we talked about marketers trying to, broaden their skills, learn to read a P&L, see the forest through the trees. I'm going to ask the question that the people's bosses that listen to this podcast will hate. Say, there's a marketer at a, S&P company. They're bored with their life. They're doing, fine professionally, but they have the entrepreneurial bug. They've been bit by it. They want to leave the nest of marketing and create a startup. Do you want to shortcut them? Can you share a few things that you learned having gone through this journey that would help them?
Oh man. Well, and also let's be clear, I got laid off. So my choice was like, go get another job or work for myself. And I had 3 months of runway and I was like, oh, I'm going to give this a go. And so ended up picking up some consulting and all that. But the advice I give to people is, number one, don't jump, step, whatever, without actually having something going on the side. Usually I tell people try to get it to 60% of your current salary before you even like jump off, and with confidence that it's going to get to replacing it. Have at least 6 months of your living expenses in the bank. If you're risk averse like I am, aim for 12. And then go all in on it. And really like, work to make it a thing, because the grass is greenest where you water it. So I think that's the thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of people look at like going out on their own and starting their own company is like, it's a decision you can't go back from. And that's not true. You can always go get another job. So like, I don't know what I tell people is like do it right with the things that I just spelled out, but also if you've had an inkling that you want to work for yourself, you want to start your own company, you owe it to yourself to do it at some point. But also, hedge the downside. Richard Branson talks about this all the time, right? Like hedge the downside and know that like if you can't get it going, or you hate working for yourself, and that happens quite often as well. I love working for myself, but a lot of people hate it. You can always go back and get a job.
Awesome. Chris, do you have a final question, or should I go one more? All right, one more. I'm being told one more from Chris. Yeah. So I guess to wrap up, John, do you want to leave, I guess, a few words of wisdom, for, I guess, for marketing leaders? We have probably the most, marketing manager level people as we, I guess, move into a more AI world, as we move into a more measurement oriented world, as sort of a lot of the trends that have happened for the last few years start to accelerate with, the baby boomers retiring. Any sort of things that you want to impart to our listeners today?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One is, first, make sure you understand all the things that you're doing and actually how they're working, right? What are all the channels you're running, content you're producing, whatever. And then ask, are you actually giving that the resources? So people, budget. People are not resources, but you're giving it the people, the time, the budget to make it successful. And are you measuring it to know if it's being successful? Basically, do you have a success metric there? So that's number one. And then the second thing that I think more marketing leaders, managers, directors, whatever, should ask themselves, and I see this not being done more from managers than from directors, because directors have gotten to a certain level for a reason. But asking yourself, and I believe is it Dan Kennedy that wrote this book? It's called basically ask yourself, like, who knows how to do this? Not how do we get it done? Because if you're already like, you're the only marketer, you have a small team and you're already strapped, it's not going to be like, it's just doing more yourself isn't necessarily going to be the answer. And if you don't know the channel or you don't know how to overcome this thing, you're going to be much better off to like take a little bit of budget and pay an expert for an hour of their time to help you unblock, this challenge, than like, trying to learn Google ads yourself or searching around and opening up 10 different blog posts and none of them exactly answer the question. They all just want you to sign up for their ebook or book a demo. Right. So like I would actually like, and I've been doing this and man, it's been amazing. Like asking myself, who knows this stuff? Who can I pay for an hour of their time to really expedite my results? For example, and of course, like I'm a CEO, but I'm a marketer still. I'm still doing all the marketing. I was recently a little bit stuck in Editor Ninja, and I learned that this guy that I know was basically number 3 at Design Pickle, which is the model that my business is modeled after. And he's an operations guy, and he like scaled them basically from 20K a month to 80K a month. And I was like, I'm interested in what happened there. And so I paid him for an hour of his time. It was 4 figures. I paid him for an hour of his time. Man, I have hand over fist made that back, like no question. And given like you have to have the capital to do it and all that, but like if you're a marketer and you have a marketing budget, right? Like often you can find someone, pay them $200 for an hour of their time, go to Clarity or Intro or whatever. You can find these people, go to Growth Mentor, right? It's super cheap there. Like you can find these people to give you the advice to really expedite your learning. Like I think too many of us just don't do that. So I think that's a cheat code that more should leverage.
I love it. And I love the, moving ego aside and basically saying, look, someone else knows this better than me. Why would I not take advantage of that? And I think once you get out of your own way with that, as you said, you can start to move a lot faster. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's not about you being right. It's, about you doing the right thing. And So where can our listeners find you online, John?
Yeah. So my personal website is John F. Doherty, DOHERTY.com. I'm posting some more stuff there. EditorNinja.com is my main business. I'm also the founder of GetCredo.com, where we help companies find the right marketing and design or development agencies to work with. So, if you're looking to kind of scale your team through outsource like that, Credo is the right place to go. If you're producing content and your team's strapped, you need to offload editing, come talk to us at Editor Ninja. And then I'm on Twitter. I'm basically Doherty JF everywhere, DOHERTYJF on all the social platforms, including Threads. So
awesome.
I am there.
Well, we will drop links to follow John online. So if you are on YouTube, check out the bottom of the video. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm still doing the Mr. Beast thing. And we will see you all next week. Thank you again, John, for joining us. And everyone, have a great rest of your day.